Okay, so I'm here with Dami and Traiceline. I feel like Dami, a lot of people know you on the channel
Oh
already.
yeah. Oh.
Um, he's a very frequent guest, but Traiceline, for people that don't know who you are, kind of give a quick synopsis, and then we can talk about how we met quickly and why we're here.
Yeah. Uh, I'm a fashion designer from Nassau, Bahamas. Moved to the UK to do fashion uni at St Martens. Graduated CSM MA Womenswear, and now I just work in the industry. I'm not gonna say where I work, but that's just like confidential situations. But yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, you will know where I work. But yeah, I just work in the fashion industry now.
Yeah, so as on the channel, I tell people like to be proactive with working in fashion and like gaining contacts, because people are always like, how do you network, like people always ask me these questions, and I always tell them that when I was at CSM I was that guy that would like go into the studios and like see what people are working on and say hello. So he is actually one of the people I met at CSM, and I would like see what he was working on in the studio and be like, oh, this is like really interesting what you're working on. And we'll talk about ideas. There are a lot of designers who at school I would talk about ideas, which was quite rare. There are not too many journalism students, I think, that did that. I'm not sure if you saw any other journalism students that did that.
No, not really, to be
Yeah,
honest.
so
They were the only journalism students necessarily. The only come through to the class, or if they had to do a project with us or
right,
something. So it's like a collaboration between like two different like programs or whatever. But it wasn't like all they naturally just came in.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So why we're actually here is Trayson had a collaboration with Dr. Martens. If you want to talk about kind of what the situation is with it, if you can.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can.
No, in terms of like the collaboration, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But in terms of like release dates and stuff
yeah.
like
Yeah,
that, I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
talk
no.
about it.
But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how did it come about, and kind of what was your idea? Like why do they look the way they are? And then obviously we'll have a look at them, but
Yeah, I mean the collaboration. So the collaboration was through CSM. Uh, so obviously, for the people who did like fashion at CSM, they know we have like industry projects, whatever. But for people who don't know, CSM normally has like industry projects within the fashion department. For that year, um, we had the Dr. Martens project, and the previous year before that, like I don't think they did shoes. I think they just like students just design clothes around shoes. You
yeah,
understand? They designed like they took a normal pair of Dr. Martens, like the 1460 boot, and then designed clothes that somebody would wear with the boot. That year that I did it, it was like, oh yeah, design clothes and design a boot.
right.
And for me, I was like, y'all just fucking give it. I'm sorry, but like y'all just giving me like ammo to like like to really go off.
Yeah,
So like I remember it, man. I remember it like it was yesterday. Like I said, I'm not gonna think about this too much. I'm not gonna like stress out about it. Like I came home when they gave us the brief. Like I put it off and I put it off and I put it off the last day before we had in the brief. I remember coming home from the studio like late, and um, I left CSM studio maybe about like 10, and then I went out with some friends, and I came home like 12 a.m. and I said I'm gonna dedicate like I already knew what I wanted to do, but for the pitch idea, like I said, I'm gonna dedicate it probably like 30 minutes. I wanted to be short, sweet, straight to the point. I sat down in my flat and I did the presentation in probably like 15 minutes because I knew exactly
wow.
what I wanted to say. And I did this like thing, this manual, and say how to obtain your Dr. Martens. And it's on my Instagram, and it's literally just like it's like it's step one, some words, and then a picture. You understand? And then step two, and it was like 8 steps or whatever until it finally got to the Dr. Martens, to the design and stuff like that. And it was solely based off of like, so it was based off of one of my friends from back in the Bahamas, one of my brethren, and female. So the whole collection was based off of 6 women who I necessarily like I grew up where they were either like close friends or like family members of mine. And basically what happened is that like this specific woman, close friend of mine, she was a thief, right? So I wanted the whole Dr. Martens boot to be around her. You understand how she navigated life, the things that she thought about, like very strategic ways, because she taught me a lot in life, and she taught me basically how to. Well, I looked at it in this way. Like she taught me one of the first things she taught me was like how to roll dice, and I took that in a way of how to take like risk and gamble on my in my own life. You
Right.
understand how to take gambles, how to just like throw myself in any situation and be able to get out of it, and how to like basically I guess like blend in into different environments based off of like situations that I'm in. So the whole boot was based around her. Like if you like once we get into the boot or whatever, if you look at it, it's literally a chameleon boot. Because when I look at Dr. Martens, when I first saw a pair of Dr. Martens, obviously I saw it in like Fresh Prince, right? But like when I thought about Dr. Martens, like I only thought about like people who go to raves, like skinheads, like
Right.
I didn't think about like or like somebody necessarily like me would wear Dr. Martens apart from seeing them on Fresh Prince, right? So first thing I said to myself is this boot has to like look like if I go in the ghetto of the Bahamas or I go in even in the rich area of the Bahamas, I could see people wearing them, but it's just the fact that based on who you are, the environment that you're in, the time or the day that you're in, all these things, I put all these things into consideration because this is how she thought, you understand? In order to like be a thief, like you have to blend in certain environments. You can't stand out. You understand? These are the things that like she lived by and stuff like that. So like I put it all into the boot, but then once we get more into it, I'll break it down even more. But that was like the
Yeah.
overall thought process of the boot and design. Yeah.
Nice. So how what's the process like? Did you come up with the design and then you had a sampling process with Dr. Martens, or how does that actually work?
So yeah, I did. I came with the design myself.
Because, quick side note, had you ever designed a footwear, like any pair of footwear before this?
No,
Right.
only thing I've like I've been a part of teams that design footwear, and I had like a say. I had like just like a point of reference,
Right.
but it wasn't like I was like designing the situation. It was more like anything that I did in terms of footwear. It might have been like product development or just like having like gaining references for the footwear, but not necessarily designing for
Right.
footwear. So yeah,
Right. Okay,
yeah.
interesting. So yeah, going back, what was the process like? Did you have a few like ideas and then there was a sampling process till you got to the final goal, or what was the
Yeah, so
process?
like they gave us like so they asked us everything that we needed, and for me I told them I need two pairs of 1460 boot. I said all black mono, and I told them everything I needed, and basically what I did was like I said, I knew exactly what I wanted to do because like from I saw the boot, like I know what the boot could have transformed into. So it wasn't like I did like trial runs in terms of like all the different ways of I could go about the boot. But like if you look at because I have some of my process of like how the boot like was designed on my Instagram. If you look at it like it's still within the same realm. You understand? It's just me trying to like map out how to go about it. So basically, I got two 1460 boot, deconstructed them, and started like working them. And then once I did that, I presented it to the creative director, Dr. Martens, and a jury that consisted of Fabio, who was the course director, CSM, Fabio Perez, Dr. Martens, creative director, Darren McCoy, Lulu Kennedy from Fashion East, and Erin McGee, who is uh, at Supreme.
Yeah.
So they were the judging panel, and basically I got it judged. They selected me, and from that the process then began on like product development of the shoe.
Right.
So that in turn that like entails like obviously. like let's just say the normal 1460 sole is a bit thinner than the sole that I use. You understand? So like I measured out how thick I wanted the sole to be, and I asked them exactly like, oh, could I get this? And then we looked at things like lace length and stuff like that. So like
Right.
the lace length that I have isn't like necessarily a normal lace length that
Is
they
it
would.
longer because there's more hoops? Yeah, that
Exactly.
would make
So,
sense.
some of, because I think it has like three laces in
Yeah,
it,
that
right?
would make
So
sense. That would
some
make
lace,
sense.
like there's one really long one, and then there's one really short one, and then there's another one that's just like a medium one that they normally use. So like it's things like that, and then like obviously like I had to look at different leathers in terms of like the textures of leathers, because they laid out all these things to me, and like we went through that, like the team at Dr. Martens and then the creative director, like we went through like a very rigorous process, and then they did a sample, and then we did that, and then they did another sample, and then after that it was created. So
Nice.
and then obviously we went around the factory where they showed me how things would be made and stuff like that. So it was a very like it was a long process, because it took like in terms of just to get the first samples, it took like a few months.
Yeah.
You understand? But it was a very easy process in terms of like getting the things done. And what made it so beautiful is that like when I walked in there, or like when I was selected to be like one of the recipients of the final, like the creative director necessarily didn't sit down and be like, oh yeah, like this is student design or whatever. Like guy literally just looked at me as just a designer, and that was something that I respected so much, because then in terms of like the creative industry right now, like a lot of people just like look at, oh yeah, there's a student designer. Like in that context, like student would always be in the front of the situation, where with him it was like, oh, it's a designer, you
Yeah.
understand? And the respect was always there, and I think that's why like the collaboration was so good as well, because like it wasn't necessarily that like divide of like, oh, that being a corporation or I'm being a student. No, it was
Yeah.
like a designer and a corporation coming together and making something. And so yeah, I'd say it was a good time, man.
How do you feel about the online response? I've seen a lot of people online have like really been going crazy about them. I've seen a few magazines cover the shoes. How has that made you feel, and like what do you think, or what do you feel about the response that you've seen online about them?
I'll be honest. I didn't personally. I didn't know that it was gonna get that much response, and I think what really pushed it over the edge in terms of like people wanting the shoe. Like we have to like I have to like shout it like Outlander magazine, right?
Yeah.
Because when they posted the shoe, like it just like obviously people really wanted the shoe before they posted, but when they posted it really went out of control at
Yeah.
that point now, right? So like the response, like I'm grateful and I'm joyous that like somebody actually, like there's people actually out there wanting to buy a shoe that I did. Because I mean, me personally, like I never sat down and said that like, oh, like when I designed the shoe, this is about to be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
You understand? When I designed the shoe, like I just wanted to design something me and my brethren's gonna wear.
Yeah.
Like that's all I really did care about. I just really cared about designing a shoe that necessarily looked like me, that me and my friends would wear. And if I was to go in any environment in terms of like people who necessarily look like me as well, whether it be in the Bahamas, whether it be in America, whether it be in the UK, they could actually say that, hey, like I would wear these. And that was all in my mind. It wasn't all like I wanted the shoe to blow up, I wanted the shoe to be the next situation.
Yeah.
And I think once you start thinking about those type of things, then you're already on the wrong track, man. Like I literally just think about, the creative process about it. So the response about the shoe, grateful for it. I'm happy, and I think it now puts like this, I guess, like this thought in my head that, hey, man, listen, maybe the ideas that you have are that they
yeah.
have some sort of meaning, and you have some sort of story to say, but I'm not I'm not gonna like allow it to like make my head like big or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, I'm happy for the response that I got, and you know, I'm grateful for that. So yeah,
Because it was great, because I know you used the shoe in your graduate collection,
yeah,
which was interesting to see.
yeah,
Because I think at CSM, from what I noticed, just from all the years I was there, because I don't think you're supposed to or you're mandated to make footwear, right?
no, no,
Yeah.
no,
So normally, most people don't have footwear because you don't have to do it, and it's actually
yeah,
really difficult to do
yeah,
and
yeah,
really complicated.
yeah,
I only know quite a few designers that have had the clothing and then the footwear as well as
yeah,
part of their graduate collection. Yeah. So that was big also, because
yeah.
that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think I was grateful enough to like obviously have like a company like Dr. Martens make shoes for me for the show, but obviously there's students in the course who take the initiative to like either make shoes by themselves or like they have like financial means to like make shoes. But the fact that students actually take it to a level of like some students do shoes, they do accessories, they
Yeah,
literally do
crazy.
everything. Like they tell a complete story, and I think things like that is what kind of like tells a story far much more than the other, and may I don't know what goes into the process of like show selection at TSM, but I think things like that necessarily shows initiative to the panel, the judging panel for the show selection that hey, like this is more this
Yeah,
isn't just about clothes at this point. This is about a narrative. This is about a story.
yeah,
And I think in fashion now, I think a lot of people don't have narratives and
hundred
stories,
percent.
and I think that's like a point in fashion that necessarily needs to like be like looked at again. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like what are we talking about? You
Like,
understand?
what's
Like
your point of view as a designer? What?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Oh, that's interesting stuff.
Any questions?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I'll
So you were
hand you the
talking. Do
mic.
you wanna? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll hold
You
it.
can
Yeah.
take the mic.
No, because you're talking about storytelling. You're talking about deconstruction, and one of the main key points that I was listening to was the idea that you wanted something that you and your people can wear, but there were also all of these like touch points in the delta that you were talking about, whereby you wanted to design something real, but then at the same time something that was wearable. So how much of your process is like leaning towards people wearing your shoe and who you're targeting also, as well as the design side.
yeah, so I mean, in terms of like the thought process of all this, like firstly, like I like how I spare the situation is at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna scream that or like I'm a black fashion designer, like I am black
You're a
and
fashion
I
designer,
am a fashion
yeah.
designer, so I don't have to like make it seem that like yeah, like this is black fashion. No, like the fact that I am black and the fact that I am doing fashion is like that's just it, right? And so looking at the shoe, like one, I did want to be respectful of the fact that like even though, and this is like the design, this is like the design side of me, like remove fashion, like design, right? So this is the design side of me looking at even though I necessarily didn't see much people such as myself wearing Dr. Martens, right?
Yeah.
I could admit that the shoe is literally like the 1460 boot is literally like a perfect silhouette, right? So it's like, if I got tapped to like, redesign like I don't know, like a Ford logo or something, like it kind of be like, like to like just like mess it all up, when the logo is literally perfect, right? So looked at the shoe, understand the history of the shoe, understand like this is a perfect silhouette. How do I necessarily take a silhouette that doesn't need to be changed but also needs to be adapted, you know? So I looked at necessarily key reference points that I grew up as a kid, looked like in terms of like when me and my brothers was hanging out, like how she wore, because she worked as a she like worked on a construction site as well, right? So like how she wore like because she wore boots to work and stuff, how she wore boots, how she had her pants tucked in her boots, all these things. And this is a situation in terms of from a designer perspective is having a story to tell, but understanding that like this is my story. You understand? And on top of understanding that this is my story, like I'm not necessarily going like into like a historical standpoint. Like I'm talking about the things that I lived through, today's time, all these situations, and understanding how I necessarily could adapt a culture that is happening in the Bahamas to something that is going on in the UK, but also understanding that, you know, what is the connection between maybe like black people in the UK to black people in the Caribbean to black people in America, and like all these like nuances that necessarily like make us one, or like
Right.
you know like the visual language. You understand? As soon as you see that, you just know like like you don't have to like that's some black that's some what we always talk about. You understand? So just looking at all these situations. So basically building up on that, like looking at like I say, like all the things that me and her did, how she like walked, how she talked, going far into it, from like a more, I wouldn't say like going far beyond just like fashion design or something that's like less tangible. So like the conversations that we had, all the things that she did, everything, all this like contributed to like how what went into the process. You understand? Because at the end of the day, like if I just sit down and glorify, okay, the fact that she was a thief. So now let's just like clarify this. Like that was just like the card that she was dealt in life. You understand? That was like a survival situation. Like I'm in no position to say like all the things that she went through in order like for her to like go down that path. But like that's not my story to tell. My story is just to tell all the interactions me and her had, and my like
Vision of
my
that and
vision of her.
perception
You
of
understand?
that,
So like
yeah.
anything that I talk about is literally like things that her and I did together. So now this is like from my perspective. So, and it's not to glorify like a thief or anything, but like because if I just wanted to like make some shoes about a thief, just make them black, black Air Force Ones, like mentality, we could do that, we could go on that, but like to make it more, far much more intellectual and understand like in terms of like from a design perspective, like I say, like we were moving fashion over the situation and understanding design and understanding respect for like the history of Dr. Martens, but also understanding like the people who I would want to see in the shoes. You deconstruct the shoes at the end of the day, like based on the environment that you're in, the shoe is like flapped down, right? The shoe is flapped down. It gives like an attitude about it. It gives like a certain like culture and nuance about it that necessarily puts you in like a black perspective. But if you flip the shoe right back up, which like I don't think people understand that you could do, you flip the shoe right back up and you just take off one of the two of the lace-ins, like the shoe goes right back into like a normal 1460 boot.
Yeah.
And this is when I talk about like being able to adapt in certain environments. So like, you have the shoe that necessarily you could wear in a certain community or in a certain period in time, and then you have the same shoe that necessarily was at like a rave concert or whatever, all these situations,
And you've kind of made it cooler and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly,
Because that's
exactly.
something that, like, when I was younger, people would like unlace their shoes and then put the flap out.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
used to
yeah.
do that with Air Maxes when we were younger. Yeah.
So it's definitely
Put the sock in the tongue and
yeah, so it's definitely understanding like, and what I do want to say is as well is that like, even though the conversation is from a black perspective, like the conversation isn't subjected just to like black people. Like I'm not just so chill like saying like, oh, only black people. Because this conversation is from a black perspective. Only black people go at this. No, like like the conversation is far much more wider and far much more deeper than that. You understand? So that's where it's like, in terms of like I'm not trying to make this like this like Harvard breakdown like situation, make it more intellectual than it is, because at the end of the day it's a boot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's still understanding how much thought went into the background of the situation to simply make like just a boot. You understand? It wasn't just like, or like,
But that's the reason I wanted to speak to you, because I think a lot of people might just see a boot and be like, it's just got a lot of flaps. They don't know how, like, what the process is to actually get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and it's quite funny because when a lot of people say, oh, it's just this or it's just that, but like, no one thought of it.
yeah,
So clearly it's not that easy, but it's
Yeah.
when you've gone through the process of having this understanding of, changing the context of a boot and then coming to that outcome, and now it's like people are like, oh, but it's just that, but no one came to that same conclusion before.
yeah. Surface level. If we're talking about surface level, it's just a boot, right?
Yeah.
But that's just surface level. But in terms of like understanding one, like this is a real person I'm talking about. This is somebody who basically I see as family, and then on top of that, not glorifying but acknowledging like things that this person might have went through, and both of us went through as well, and then putting that into a context of saying that like, because like when we grew up, like to us luxury was, bro, we get to wake up in the morning, we have running water, you understand, because there's like people in like some of the neighborhoods that that I grew up in, and then like when I went to school, some people lived in neighborhoods where it's like, for some people didn't have running water in their house, you understand, but yet they were still grateful, and to them the fact that like there was a community well down the street where they could get fresh water to have a bath at their house, that was still a luxury to them. The fact that I still have access to water, right?
Right.
So for me, I looking at a situation where it's like, I'm taking everyday life that I grew up on and just making it into a sense of luxury, because, when I came into the situation in terms of like fashion, like I knew about like luxury fashion houses and stuff like that, but like, and I knew about like obviously like Dr. Martens and stuff like that, but like maybe Dr. Martens was a step up from like a boot that I wore, which was B boots, right?
Yeah.
So like, that was a luxury, but nobody could tell me that B boots wasn't a luxury, because like everybody was wearing B boots
Yeah.
when I was growing up. You understand? Like everybody's wearing Clarks when I was growing up. Like these was luxury to us. It wasn't until maybe we graduated high school, and then you get into a more like now you working, you have a job, like your parents ain't paying for stuff for you no more, like you could actually spend money on what you want to spend money on. Then you understand that, oh, there's like a level up to situations, right? So, but why I'm saying this is that like the whole concept is to understand that luxury is like what you make it, right? So people might be like, oh yeah, it's just a boot with different flaps or whatever. But in terms of like the thought process and understanding where I wanted to take a boot that I necessarily didn't see look like me, and bring it into a context that it looks like me, it feels like me, but then it also still speaks to its core audience, and then a new audience, and then probably some other audience as well. Like I think that's where people need to understand that like, it takes more than just like, oh, anybody could do that. No, anybody can't do that, because like you said, if anybody could do that, then they would have done it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So let's get into the boots. Let's see some of the details.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah, I think these would be good. Yeah. So should we we'll pull out two of them.
Yeah. We can pull both out.
So yeah, these are the boots here. Sorry. So limited run of like 30 pairs have been made.
Okay.
Obviously, you guys will get a pair.
Hey.
Come on.
Is there a reason why it's limited? Is it just like Dr. Martens didn't decide to like go further with it, or
That conversation, I can't really talk too much about the
Okay,
conversation,
yeah, that's
but
fair
yeah,
enough,
but
yeah.
like for right now,
It's limited.
it's limited.
Yeah.
Right now, it's limited, and
Okay.
like we chose, I think we chose like a good set of people to get it. People who necessarily see it for more than just like hype, but
Yeah.
actually enjoy like one design and enjoy like I guess like Dr. Martens as a brand, as a staple to like British culture, and
Yeah.
then also like myself as like a designer. So
Yeah.
yeah. So for right now, yeah, I live in it.
This is quadruple black, right? So, like, there's a name for quadruple black where I come from in it, and like I don't know if everyone says it, but it's like murder black. That's essentially what it's called, or I like to call it midnight black or something else now because it's a different type of name. But was there a reason for making it like quadruple black?
So
Because even the soul is black. I don't know whether
Yeah.
like it's a deep, rich black as
yeah,
well.
so this simply just happened because of me as an individual. So like I have this situation where I'm just
You
like,
wear a lot of black.
I wear a
though,
lot
too.
of black. I wear a lot of black, and it is not because because everybody talk about like
Some people say, "Oh, it's easy to."
yeah, like I'm just lazy. You understand? Like I literally like I think my mind spins so much in terms of like just like a lot of things go through my mind. I just don't have
That's a
time.
very designer thing, because I've noticed, we have this conversation all the time, that a lot of designers who spend so much time designing put all their like soul and passion into designing, but by the end of the day you don't want to think too much about what you
Yeah.
wear. You think of how Alexander McQueen used to dress,
Yeah.
or think of like a lot of like Rassimans will just wear like some Levi jeans and like some
Yeah, yeah,
sneakers, like, because
yeah.
they just, it's just so much energy, and
Yeah.
so that's why most designers either wear their own stuff, or they just have a simple uniform that they stick
And,
to. Yeah.
So does this go within your uniform or does it extend outside of that?
this I would probably wear these shoes more on the weekend. So a shoe like this for me,
Okay.
like would be like what I use to like separate what I wear at work versus what I wear on the weekend. And it's just simple things like this that necessarily like I like, because like obviously people would see me wearing like a certain shoe to work, and then like they would see me on a Saturday and they'd be like, oh, like he wearing like today he wearing like how I have the CP jacket. Normally I would wear like a shirt, like a black t-shirt, and then like another like overshirt over it. Now on the weekends he wearing a black CP jacket and these shoes. That's as far as I go. Like that's enough radicalness for me. And it's simply because, man, like literally like I just can't be bothered. Like I just want to wake up, take a shower, put my hand in my closet, whatever come out, and I just go.
Yeah.
You understand? Like I don't want to sit down, because like I had a point in my life where like I used to wear more than black, right? And it was frustrating because I'd sit down and like this is just me talking. I'd be sitting down, like trying to figure out like, oh, wonder what like I would look fresh in, to make sure like
Yeah.
like for girls and stuff. This how I think, like
Yeah.
oh, would a girl think I look fresh and this and stuff like that. And like it's like it was so much thought going into the situation, like, and this is where like the creative side come out of me as well, because like I'll be wearing, like, let's just say I wear some denim jeans, and then I put on another shirt and I'd be like, man, like if that denim jeans was just like a slightly a bit washed, it'll look even better with these Air Force Ones. And then that's when things get too complicated for me, and I just I can't deal with this, man. Simply I just can't deal with this. Or something was just like a bit like if you like wearing this jacket, oh, this is a little more mustard yellow, would have been like clean with like these black like I can't be bothered with that no more, man. It really frustrates me to a point where I just like, you know what, I can't do it.
So do you have like a reasoning behind the type of black that you used for, or not so the type of black, but type of leather that you used for the upper?
Yeah, so basically we looked at different types of leather, like obviously like the matte, like a shiny one, like a bit one that has a bit more oil in it, that it is still matte but it's a bit, and everything, like we literally like did a few samples, and I think like just like from a point of like taste and a point of like visual, like looking visually appetizing to me, like the matte just like stood out. I don't want to make things more complicated in a way that sometimes things just like look better. You understand? Sometimes things just give like
Well, that's taste, isn't it?
yeah,
That's
so it's
a
just taste.
thing.
So I don't want to sit down and be like, oh, like I chose this black because of like some
Yes.
philosophical reason, you know, like it ain't that. Like it's literally just like this black, like visually it was just far much more cleaner. And I also did wanted something a bit more timeless and easy for people to just like say like, yes, this is like a good black.
Yeah, because it's a little bit hard for people to, once you've already gone outside the particular vision that people understand the Doc Martens in, then doing even further in terms of like picking colors and textures and all of that type of stuff can razzle their brain.
Yeah.
That then like kind of takes me to the conversation of your like particular visual language, because you design for women mainly, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you're designing for women, you're talking about your taste level, but you're also adding in the storytelling element and then the life and times element of your life. So when you're infusing all of that into your women's wear, what is the can you like talk about your design process first, and then we'll get into the further question.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say my design process is like obviously. Have you ever like Have you ever had like I don't know like Christmas dinner, right? And like all your cousins come over, right? And all your cousins come over, and like the whole family over, and everybody just like talking about oh back in my day, you know, and they telling
Right.
stories, and then like your cousin or your uncle and stuff telling stories about like when they was younger and all the things that they was doing, and then like your mother look at like when you telling your story, your mother look at you like I didn't even know you was doing them type of stuff, and like you know you start like basically like dry snitching on yourself because now you telling like you older now, so it's like but like it's like this sitting around like your grandmother's house sharing stories with each other about previous times and stuff like that. Like I look at first of all I look at my design process as like like a situation like that where it's like not necessarily saying that like the audience is like my family, but like I'm treating it like my family. Like we just having this conversation where I now like reflecting on the things that I did growing up, and like we having this conversation where it's like it's all like it's like I say like a Christmas dinner, and like after the Christmas dinner when you're in the living room, sharing these stories. So that's like the first stage of me. Second stage is like understanding that like maybe some people might think that we quite different, but in actuality like me personally I feel as though like the human life, like a lot of us live the same life, just like in different time zones, maybe different languages, different races or whatever. But like I was talking to one of my brothers about this, and I talked about like this thing like off. I have this phrase like where I say like off. I don't have the phrase, but like I say this like for you, my friend, 5% off. And I feel as though like when you say that, like a lot of people understand what it is. You understand? You understand? Like all of us have been to like a market where like that person say off for you, but it's the fact that like it's the fact that you know you guys from London, from Nigeria, and you have heard that. Somebody from China might heard that. Somebody from like, I don't know, like Fargo, North Dakota
Right.
could hear that. Like all of us have heard that, you understand? But it's like the fact that like people from all around the world have heard that, you understand, heard that phrase. It's the fact that like I guess like that's what I'm trying to like get at in terms of like how everybody in actuality are like quite the same, and bringing that like I guess like that humanist to like a luxury experience of saying that hey listen man like these like everyday things are luxury, you understand? Like when I came into fashion I felt as though there was so much division, you understand? And what I wanted to kind of bring forward in this is like this community situation, and with these conversations then community happens, right? And so that's another step of it. And then from there, like obviously all of us have had these experiences, but now like let's talk about the experiences from my perspective, right? And then that's when like the personal language then comes in, right? Before the personal language comes in, it's more of a community language, right? Because like all of us have gone through these situations. Now it's like we have this community language. Now I tell the story from my perspective, and then once it gets released, then you see elements of like how the story looks from your perspective, and you like I guess like I would say then you more gravitate towards the conversation, and then from there then the dialogue begins, because then we start to look at the fact that wow, like I went through that situation, but like obviously Traiceline went through that situation in the Bahamas at age like 12 or whatever. I went through that situation.
Just somewhere else in a
It's just
different
somewhere
context.
and you know, different context, whatever. And then like the conversation has started through the clothes, and then the dialogue now happens between like just like you receiving the clothes or you receiving the shoes and understanding perspective. And then like my whole design process is very much community minded, man, because I grew up in this environment where they say, oh, it takes a village to raise a child. You
Yeah.
understand? Like my grandmother used to cook for the when she made food. You know, she had a house and it was in a cul-de-sac, right? When she made food, like she made food for the whole neighborhood. You understand? My aunt still like does that. My grandmother's passed. My aunt still does that. You understand? When I was growing up, like my cousins, all of us, like we used to sleep in my grandmother's house together. Like it was far, like even my neighbors in my grandmother's area, like I call them my cousins because like we grew up together. And it's not like my actual cousin who lives next door to my grandmother. Like my mother, like my aunt couldn't make it to the hospital, and my mother like gave birth helped my aunt, you know.
midwife type
So it's like so much situations where it's like it's very much community minded for me. So like my whole design focus is far like community rather than like individualistic, man. I don't design from that perspective, and I think like that's where like I'm able to I don't know. I wouldn't like prejudge it and say that I'm able to like resonate with a lot of people, but like I would hope that when the designs come out, like a lot of people feel as though that like they are part of something and they've lived that same experience just
Yeah.
like in a different time.
So
Or in a different place.
Yeah.
For
yeah,
example.
because you were talking like, well, part of what you're talking about was the context clues, right?
Yeah.
Of culture, like so. When you say for you, my 5% off, all of that type of stuff, that's like the context clues of a particular culture, of a particular region of people, and then that's like the introduction. That's kind of like the handshake people have with your designs.
Yeah.
And then there's a further um, identity in terms of the brand identity. So you know you're talking about community and all of these other things, but then you have this nature where you pick certain fabrics and have a taste for certain particular modes of operation, like you know turning down, like putting two Dr Martens together and then turning it down. Those are, let's say, they're not necessarily reference points, but they are, you know, context clues from certain different regions that
Yeah.
are able to be infused into one place. So, do you have like a process of where and when you pick each individual one, or is it just based on some sort of instinct?
I would say instinct is probably like I lean more towards that, but then I also think that like certain fabrics or certain like you say context clues, they speak more to me when it comes to like the conversation that I want to have. You understand? So like in this context, like I wanted to talk about like a thief, right? I want to talk about my friend who's a thief. Like she wouldn't I wouldn't pick like crocodile skin for this, you understand? Even though like I have crocodiles, like not like actual crocodile skin, but like I have like crocodile print in one of the looks in the same collection, right? But in terms of like the conversation for that person, it doesn't help the
Doesn't
conversation.
fit, so
You
it
understand?
doesn't, yeah.
So I think yes, instinct, but then also I think the the I guess like the fabrication or like all these things have to fit within the wider scope of the conversation. So it's a mixture of both, but then instinct is definitely like it leans more towards that. But yeah,
So, like, just on a finisher, I wouldn't say then that the black is just black because it's black. There's a further reasoning towards that, right? And there is ways people can dig, maybe not in terms of either the design direction, but maybe in the storytelling, because there is a deeper meaning in the story. Because you could have picked like let's say a braise level, like in terms of like the texture, something
Yeah.
more full of texture, but then you wouldn't be able to clean it easy if you were a thief, and then people are going to be able to see the mud tracks and all of these other things.
Yeah.
So there are certain ways and modes that people think. Not that I know any thieves or anything, but
But
there are
I think
certain
it
modes of
fits because
thinking.
you were talking earlier about, I think she does construction or something.
Yeah. So
the boot has to have like a sort of like a workwear.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I would say that
And then keeping this down so that when you raise it up, it's gonna be a clean side.
one I would say when I initially spoke to Dr. Martens about like especially like the sole, like the sole has far much more, like you could see it has far much more grip and is far much more platform than the normal Dr. Martens. One, in terms of like the platform, I wanted to make the platform a bit more like feminine than others. But in terms of like the sole and the grip, like I looked at the fact that like if she's running, you understand, like things like that. I would say in terms of the color, like in terms of the color, I did have a reference of like black Air Force, right? Because we all know like
Triple black.
like black Air Force, like that's like that situation, like when you see somebody wearing black Air Force, you know they on
Demon
black Air
time.
Force activity. You understand? So that was like one of the perspectives that I looked at, and that was just from like a cultural nuance, like from that way. In terms of like the color, and in terms of like the mat, like I was just looking at that situation of how does these shoes stand the test of time in terms of like, let's just say, in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever, right? When, the talk about the shoes is done and dusted over with, and somebody has these in the back of their closet, and then they decide like in the next like 5 years to pull them back out, will they look at these shoes and be like, wow, like it has stand the test of time in terms of like the color, like I could still pull these out. Like the conversation has to go far beyond, the moment in time,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
like it is a pin, like obviously like I did stick a pin in like the moment of time that I'm talking about in terms of to gain inspiration for the shoe, but I don't think I want the shoe to just last like a specific moment in time. And maybe if I had, let's just say I had put these like a crocodile print, then maybe they would have just been for like this time, and then after that, then people put them in the back of their closet, and they might not be able to bring them out until like if crocodile comes back in style. So a lot of these things like that, yes, I thought about from that perspective.
I'm happy that you're considering stuff like that because that goes into like sustainability without you meaning to.
Yeah.
Because you're actually thinking of, I want to create things that people can actually use for years and years and years, and
Yeah.
are actually quite timeless. Something I really want to talk about though is on the back. There's kind of like this panel here that you put the lace through.
Yeah.
That is a detail that allows you to fold this bit properly. So, did you come up with the idea for this specifically?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the reason why I did that was because obviously there was like if I'm being honest, like I looked at like a shoe that I really loved as well, and I kind of like loved in terms of like the lace details of it.
Yeah.
Was like Converse, right?
Right.
And basically like when I started to like really dissect in terms of things that I was interested in as well as things that she was interested in, I looked at like really old Converse, like when basketball players was wearing Converse. Because one of the things that Mina talked about as well was like basketball, right? So it's like these are a lot of like context clues, or like for myself that I look at. So like I'm not necessarily letting people know that like, oh, like you could just flip a shoe down and just like put a tab there. No, it isn't like that. Like I really like that dive deep into all the conversations that her and I had, everything that we did, like our whole time together is based in the shoe. You understand?
Yeah.
So I looked at all these things. I looked at Converse in terms of like when you really pull those shoes tight, and because of the laces are so long, you have to wrap them around and stuff like that. So that's where like that came from about, and yeah.
See, that's the thing, right? Because that particular thing you were talking about with the Converses, that is a cultural context clue where, because I remember back in school when You know,
I know where this is
Converses were like the cheapest shoe that parents can get, but they were stylish, isn't
Yeah.
it? So you could get 5 colors and it would be under £200. You know,
Isn't it crazy how expensive Converses are now?
Yes,
There was a point in time when I could
yeah.
get Converse All Stars for like £25-30.
Listen, yeah.
But
Crazy.
that comes with like how different people had their iterations of like Converse in terms of like collaborations.
Yeah.
So when those collaborations came around, like to whomever who had collaboration, like we all know who had collaboration with Converse, right? When those things started happening, like the collaboration probably brought up the price of like just the original Converse, and now it's like, you know,
Yeah.
now these collaborations now I guess cost the original conversation to now be like
Yeah.
uplifted.
Yeah.
But one thing that I would namely want to speak about, because you could get so many Converses, like the way that people would freak them was they'll get the tall Converses as tall as you can get, and
Fold
fold
the
them
flat.
all the way
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
And because the strings were so long, because you folded them, you wrap them around twice.
Around the shoe,
and,
yeah.
and the girls would just get different laces, and then they
That's
would
why
add
I was
to-
asking
yeah.
him if this was his idea, because it reminds me of that.
Yeah.
And it's so
That
funny
was the error, fam.
that as a reference, the first thing he went to was Converse, because that literally
exactly.
you would get the high top Converses.
Yeah.
And then fold it down and use the laces to wrap around to actually keep it in place.
I
So like, even when I saw this, I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
And then we also have to like bring up the fact that like a lot like around the time me and I was having a lot of these conversations was around like the swag era.
Right.
Like
Okay.
that was
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
So it's like like I was looking at like obviously the point in time like I was living in as well. Like obviously me and I was having conversations before then.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of the conversations that we really was having was around that time. And around the swag time, like everybody's wearing Converse.
Yeah.
See, yeah, because this is like the thing is like I used to think girls were like cute, like when they had the different laces or they would get the thicker laces and then put them in there and like it just told you that someone spent time based on the way that
Right.
they
Yeah.
looked.
right.
And it was like, oh damn, you know what I'm saying? She did this to them,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's part of, at least for me, when it comes to the basis of the shoe in general, the boot in general, it's like it picks on certain different cultural reference points that are based in caretaking of the cultural references that we are so accustomed to already.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much for running us through the whole. It's so good to like get into the mind of designers sometimes, because I feel like sometimes maybe as an audience, as consumers, we take for granted like what goes into stuff being made. We just kind of see the end product and we're like, yeah.
And I think like from that perspective, like a lot of people sit down and see the end product, whether the end product is like very simple or like complex. A lot of people be like, oh, I could do that, or like this and that. But it's like you're like really just seeing the end product, and probably you're seeing the end product on like social media where like things are like moving so rapidly, right?
And you don't even see all the angles. You might just see it like
Exactly.
that. Like, yeah.
But I think like people like sometimes things are just like what it is. Like a boot is just a boot. A trainer is just a trainer, or whatever. But then at the end of the day, like there's more context and there's more like thought process that go into these things. Even the construction of them, it really wasn't easy. You know, as simple as they might look, like the construction of the shoe, like it took Dr. Martens and I like a few like trial runs to figure out like how to replace the stitching on the entire shoe, because now like
Right.
you like basically putting a shoe into a shoe. You understand? Like on top of that, like it took us some time to figure out like now the leather to use, because now like you have to bend this leather. You understand? Like it's a lot of situations, and then like
I know it's the tongue.
it's
The
two
tongue
it's
is a
two
different
tongues.
material.
Yeah, you understand?
Yeah.
It's two tongues. Like it's a lot of things that needed to be thought about from like, let's just say from a design perspective to make the shoe still look clean and not like just like a bunch of components put on it, and then from a product development standpoint as well. So it's two standpoints you got to look at, from a designer standpoint and now a product development standpoint. So it's like things aren't as easy and straightforward as they may seem. You understand? And a lot of people, they might get like confused, or they might feel as though, oh yeah, I could do this, but I mean,
But it's not even the most basic things. Like, for example, if I decide that I want to make a jacket, but then let's say the bottom half, I'm going to use a different material to the top half. Well, if the material you use for the bottom half is too heavy, that fabric is actually pulling down on the rest of the
Exactly.
garment, and it's going to destroy the garment. So if you want to
Exactly.
do that, you have to now account for the weight. You might have to reinforce certain places.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really sciencey and really complicated. And someone looking at the jacket might just be, it's just two materials. But then if you try to make it, you would make a jacket where it's destroying the fabric because the bottom is too heavy
Hey,
and it doesn't sit right, right?
Exactly. I have listen, I have to commend like being in the, obviously when I like doing things myself, like obviously I have to be everything all at once, right? But then being in the industry, like I have to commend product developers because
Right.
for them to like obviously these crazy ideas that designers coming up with, like product developers have to like actualize these designs in terms of fabrication, in terms of stitching, all these things. Obviously, like the pattern makers as well. Like so, like that even count for me. That even counts as like product development. They really have to like take these crazy ideas that designers do and actualize them to a point where they're functional.
Right.
You understand? Where fabrics like don't clash with each other,
Right.
where one doesn't like because you know, let's just say you making any garment and you know yeah you have like a heavier fabric on the collar versus like the normal fabric. Like now it's like the collar will probably be so heavy that the the
Neckline and
neckline
yeah.
now stretches and stretches and stretches, all these type of things.
Yeah.
You understand? Like even if you have like a very like heavy fabric, like let's just say like knitwear or something, right? Like they have to like constantly test that knitwear to make sure it isn't so heavy to a point where like once you wear it, like the knit is constantly stretching to a point now you bought a shirt and then like 2 weeks later now you have a dress.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's all these things like I think people don't necessarily think about when you talk about like fashion design or like product development and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like there's a lot of tests that like I can't speak for everybody, but like from what I've seen, like there's a lot of tests and prototypes that go into things before they even
Yeah.
release to the public.
Especially when you're designing, things that are complicated like this. Obviously, it's different if you're going to factory and then printing logos on
Yeah,
hoodies. That's
yeah.
like, obviously, there's not really much thought that goes into that. But if you're trying to create a design from your head and trying to actualize it, there's so many things you need to take into account
Exactly.
to make sure it's actually usable. So, yeah.
That's 3D development right there. Like there's so many
Yeah.
things just based on like when I'm thinking about product design that has to go into that. Like the tongue is unfinished; it doesn't have any stitching on it, so it means that the tongue is able to flap forward easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that are going in there where someone had to think about making
Yeah.
sure the tongue looked like that.
And even to speak on the tongue, it's like the finishing around the tongue. You have to think about how that is done in terms of like now you don't have like stitching on it. Like how do you well it's leather. Leather isn't gonna like unravel like fabric, but like
Yeah.
how do you also protect that from like I guess like ripping? You know, like
Yeah.
in terms of now like it has like no protection like in terms of like a seam, because like obviously a seam protects a lot of the inside of the garment. So now you have something that is supposed to be inside exposed to the outside. How do you now protect that from like wear and tear and being able to like? So there's a lot of things that go into these situations. So that's why it's like a whole design process from design to pattern making, the product development, all these stuff like everything like everything is like worth it because one even like just a millimeter off could like ruin something completely. You understand? And I don't think people understand that. I think everybody sits down and it's good to think that like I could do whatever I put my mind to. Yeah, like I like people who are that ambitious, because those people who are that ambitious, they end up finding out that it isn't that easy, but then they end up finding out
The
the
skills
skill to
learn
make it
how
work,
to.
right? But then you have some people who literally sit down all day and then they scroll through Instagram and they be like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then then after they say I could do that, then they continue scrolling. You understand? And it's like that's where like the problem lies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's
Yeah, great conversation, honestly,
fine.
because I think talking about those things is really important. It really is.